So I've just got back from 25 days in the Brecon beacons. I cleaned my pod and I put her in her PJs. Today I've got to sort a few bits out, so I thought this would be a good time to give you guys an adventure recap. So we're going to go through the total cost of the trip, my favourite campsite and best walks. Now, if you didn't see what we got up to, here's a quick recap of our Brecon beacon adventure in 2 minutes. So we went from the 12th of February to the 7th of March. Now, the best thing about going at that time of year is that everywhere was quiet. So I didn't have to fight for parking on some of the big walks, and a lot of the time we had a campsite mainly to ourselves. Now, the downside to going at that time of year is, firstly, not all campsites are open. So it was very difficult for us to always find campsites in locations where I wanted to be. Second is that some attractions are closed. So we were on one campsite right next to the National Show Cave Centre for Wales, but all the caves were closed. So even though we were right there, I couldn't go and see them. Another big downside is that the weather is unpredictable. So we encountered sunny days, we encountered a lot of rain, even a few weather warnings. We even encountered a lot of wind, hail and snow. So if you are going to go at that time of year, do be prepared for all weathers. Okay, so I've got my iPad because we're going to go through the campsites and the costs. So for each campsite I stayed for 6 nights. They were all hard standing, all of them had electric, and it was for one person, one dog and one small single axle caravan. So the first campsite I stayed at was the Hog's Head in Abergavenny, or Abergavenny, I'm not quite sure of the pronunciation, but for 6 nights I paid £240, so that averaged £40 per night. Next up was the Show Caves Centre for Wales campsite, almost in the centre of the Brecon beacons. For that campsite I paid £180, which averaged £30 per night. Next up was the Erlon Caravan and Camping Park, which was over in Landovery or Landovery, depending on the pronunciation. For that campsite, I paid £132, an average of £22 per night. And then the final campsite was Hay on Wye. Surprisingly, that's in Hay on Wye, and it was £192 for 6 nights, averaging £32 per night. So in total, for my 24-night trip, I paid £744 in campsite costs. So that was an average of £31 per night. Now, I was also going to go through my food costs and my fuel, but that kind of doesn't mean anything to you because that will vary greatly depending on what car you're driving, how far you're going to be driving, if you're towing, if you're not towing, and how much you eat as a person, and what type of food you like. So there's really no point in me putting those in this breakdown. The only other cost that I did have was laundry. So I went for 4 weeks, but I took 2 weeks worth of clothes and then did a big wash halfway through the trip. And for that I paid £3 to wash and then £2 in the dryer, and I had to do that twice, so I had to do 2 loads. So all in all, it cost me an extra £10 in laundry fees. So if I was going to do this trip again, and if I could only pick one campsite, then the one I would choose would be the National Showcase Centre for Wales. Now, this wasn't the most expensive campsite and it wasn't even the cheapest. It was about mid-range in price, but its location makes it perfect for exploring the Brecon beacons. I could have done every walk that I'd done on this trip from that campsite. And also it had my most favourite pitch of the trip. And that is because out the back of my pod, I had a lovely stream and a picnic bench. Sadly, I didn't get to enjoy it that much because it rained for most of the time when I was there, but it was still my most favourite pitch of the trip. So therefore, if I could go back again, I would just base myself at that campsite, do all the walks from that campsite, and hopefully get a few sunny days where I could sit outside and enjoy that lovely stream. So finally, let me go through my 5 top walks of the trip. So if I was going to do it again, these would be the 5 walks I would want to do and not miss. So in at number 5 is the Lady of the Lake. They're just sheer, I don't want to call them cliffs, but they almost look like cliff edges of just the rock formations. Again, that's not the right terminology, but just the hills around the lake, just spectacular. And again, walking up and seeing the lake below, brilliant, brilliant views. And if you watch any of my vlogs, you know that I love a good view. 4th on my list is Pen y Fan, again because of the absolute amazing views. And also it's pretty cool to say that you hiked up to the top of the highest point in South Wales. Now, number 3 on my list isn't really a hike. I mean, I would call it more of a walk, because you park, you walk down a hill and you're pretty much there. But if I remember correctly, this is the highest waterfall in South Wales. It's Henreid Falls and it has a single drop of over 90 feet. Now, I love this one because I got to go behind the waterfall, and it's the first waterfall that I've ever managed to go behind, so it's one that I wouldn't want to miss. Number 2 on my list is Hay Bluff. Now, when we went to do this mountain was actually covered in snow. So we were originally planning to go up Hay Bluff and then to walk across to Lord Hereford's Knob, which is the name of the other hill that we were going to go to. But because of the snow, we rerouted and went back to the car early. I would love to do this again in summer because the views were just spectacular. Even driving to the car park and getting out of the van, I was still just I would have been happy there. I could have gone home simply because of that view. But then going up to the top, I felt higher at the top of Hay Bluff than when I did Pen y Fan, even though Pen y Fan is higher than Hay Bluff. I think it's because Hay Bluff is one of the highest peaks in the Black Mountain area, so you do still feel as though you are on top of the world. And the number 1 walk on my list for you not to miss is a very popular one. It's a very touristy one. It's probably not going to be a surprise to you, but it is the 4 Waterfalls walk. Now, I love this because I absolutely love waterfalls. And it's exactly as the name suggests. You walk a trail and you see 4 waterfalls, but they are amazing. And if you go at the right time of year, I believe one of them you can walk behind. Now, when we went, there was just too much water coming over, so unfortunately we didn't get to go behind it, but it was still incredible nonetheless. My only tip would be that if you are going at peak tourist season or in the summer, get there early. First of all, you want to be able to park easily, and it's nice to be able to walk and see the waterfalls without anybody else there, because I've seen some clips of it in summer and it does get quite touristy. So if you want to have the falls to yourself, make sure you get there early, or just go in February like I did. I didn't see anyone else when I was there. So that's about it. Now I'll link to my Brecon Beacons vlog series in the description below if you want to check that out and see what Winston and I actually got up to on every day of the trip. But I hope you found this video useful. If there's any other information that you would like, please pop it in the comments below. I will do my best to answer, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.